Did you know that in the middle of the Californian desert there is an area where boulders move on flat ground? The truth about Death Valley's moving stones, a 100-year scientific mystery. Imagine standing in the middle of one of the hottest, driest places on Earth, Death Valley, California. No plants, no water, just an endless, cracked desert floor. But then, something catches your eye. Massive stones, some weighing as much as a grown man, have left long, winding trails behind them, stretching across the ground like ghostly footprints. The strangest part? No one has ever seen them move. For over a century, this was one of nature's strangest mysteries. Scientists and explorers came up with every possible theory, some logical, some completely bizarre. But in 2014, the case was finally solved. And the real answer? It was nothing like what anyone expected. Let's break it down. The first official records of the moving stones came from prospectors and settlers in the early 1900s who wandered into Death Valley looking for gold. Many of them passed through a place called Racetrack Playa, a vast, flat lakebed in the northern part of the valley. What they found was completely baffling. These weren't small pebbles. Some of these stones weighed over 700 pounds, and yet, somehow, they were moving, leaving behind distinct, curving trails that stretched for hundreds of feet. But there were no footprints, no signs of windstorms, and no clear explanation. By the 1940s, scientists had taken notice. In 1948, two geologists, Jim McAllister and Alan Agnew, wrote the first academic paper about the stones, but even they had no idea what was causing them to move. That's when the theories started rolling in. One of the first serious theories suggested that earthquakes were responsible for moving the stones. The idea was that tremors from California's frequent seismic activity could be shifting the rocks, causing them to slide across the surface. It seemed logical at first, but there was a problem. The trails left by the rocks weren't random. If earthquakes were the cause, you'd expect chaotic movement. Instead, the stones had well-defined paths, some making sharp, almost deliberate turns. That didn't fit the pattern of an earthquake. The next major theory came from researchers in the 1950s and 60s, who suggested that powerful desert winds were pushing the stones across the lakebed. It sounded possible. Death Valley does get wind gusts up to 90 miles per hour, or 145 kilometers per hour. And since Racetrack Playa is almost perfectly flat, there's no uphill resistance. But again, there were problems with this idea. Even the strongest winds ever recorded wouldn't be enough to move a 700-pound boulder, especially across dry, rough ground. By the 1970s, researchers had mostly abandoned the wind theory, but that didn't stop some people from coming up with even wilder ideas. At this point, some people took a, let's say, creative approach to solving the mystery. One idea was that magnetic fields beneath the Earth were pulling the rocks like invisible hands. Others took it even further, claiming that aliens were moving the stones for unknown reasons. As fun as these theories were, they didn't hold up to basic science. Racetrack Playa is made of simple clay and silt, not magnetic material. And despite what some UFO enthusiasts might hope, there was no real evidence of extraterrestrial involvement. In 1972, geologist Bob Sharp and student Dwight Carey decided it was time to get serious. They picked 30 different rocks, gave them names like Karen and Nancy, and marked their locations. Then, they waited. And waited. And waited. For 7 years they checked back regularly, and in that time only a few stones moved, but they still didn't see it happen in real time. The mystery remained unsolved. Fast forward to 2014. A group of researchers from Scripps Institution of Oceanography, led by Richard Norris and his cousin Jim Norris, finally captured the stones moving in real time. And what they found was mind-blowing. The answer? A perfect combination of ice, water, and wind. Winter rains flood the lake bed, creating a shallow layer of water. Overnight, temperatures drop, causing a thin sheet of ice, just a few millimeters thick, to form across the water's surface. The next morning, as the sun rises, the ice begins to crack into floating panels. A light breeze, just 5 miles per hour, or 8 kilometers per hour, is enough to push the ice sheets, which then gently nudge the rocks along the wet ground. This happens so slowly that it's almost imperceptible to the human eye, sometimes moving just a few inches per minute. After over 100 years of mystery, science finally had the answer. It wasn't aliens, it wasn't earthquakes, and it wasn't hurricane-force winds. It was a delicate balance of water, ice, and just the right amount of wind. But here's what makes this discovery even more fascinating. If something as simple as moving rocks took us over a century to figure out, imagine how many other natural mysteries are still waiting to be solved. Nature has a way of surprising us, and thanks to science, we're still uncovering some of its strangest secrets. If you love learning about the most fascinating facts on Earth, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.